Ladies, let's talk about something that often goes unnoticed but is essential for our emotional health and well-being. Why do women sometimes leave men who genuinely care about them? It's a question that carries weight, and the answers might surprise you. The truth is, it's not about the man, it's about the woman herself, her past experiences, and her relationship with herself. Fear of vulnerability is a deeply ingrained emotional response that many women experience when faced with the opportunity for love, connection, or intimacy. It's often an invisible barrier that prevents women from fully embracing the love they deserve, even when it is given freely and sincerely. Vulnerability in its purest form is the willingness to open up, to share our deepest thoughts, feelings, and fears with another person. It requires trust, courage, and the acceptance that we may face disappointment or hurt. However, for many women, vulnerability feels like a risk, a threat to their emotional safety and well-being. This fear is not something that arises out of nowhere. It is shaped by life experiences, past traumas, and societal conditioning. From a young age, many women are taught to protect themselves, to avoid showing weakness, and to maintain a certain level of emotional control. Society often equates vulnerability with weakness, leading women to believe that being open and emotionally transparent could make them appear fragile or exposed. This conditioning creates a deep-seated belief that to be loved and valued, they must remain strong, independent, and invulnerable. For some women, this fear of vulnerability stems from past emotional wounds. Perhaps they have been hurt in previous relationships, whether through betrayal, abandonment, or unfulfilled promises. These experiences can leave lasting scars, leading women to build walls around their hearts as a means of self-protection. The pain from past disappointments becomes a filter through which all future love is viewed. When someone new enters their lives, offering genuine care and affection, their instinct may be to retreat, to pull away before they risk being hurt again. In many cases, the fear of vulnerability is rooted in childhood experiences. If a woman grew up in an environment where emotional expression was discouraged, where love was conditional, or where trust was broken, it can be difficult for her to believe that love is safe and unconditional. She may have learned to suppress her feelings, hide her true emotions, and guard her heart in order to avoid rejection or criticism. This pattern of emotional suppression can carry into adulthood, making it hard for her to fully embrace a loving partner who wants to offer her care without strings attached. Moreover, vulnerability can feel like a form of exposure, and for many women, being exposed can feel dangerous. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are showing our true selves, imperfections and all. This can trigger feelings of shame or inadequacy, as though we are not enough or do not deserve love as we are. The fear of not measuring up, of being judged or criticized, can lead to a self-protective instinct to keep others at arm's length. Instead of allowing love to enter, women may push it away to avoid facing the possibility of rejection or hurt. Another significant factor contributing to the fear of vulnerability is the belief that emotional dependence on another person could be a form of weakness. Many women, especially those who have been taught to value independence and self-sufficiency, fear that opening themselves up to love might make them lose their sense of autonomy. They worry that if they let someone in, they may lose control of their emotions, their decisions, or their personal space. This fear of losing oneself in another person can cause a woman to shy away from intimacy, even when it is healthy and supportive. It's important to recognize that vulnerability is not about weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. To allow ourselves to be vulnerable is to acknowledge our humanity and to trust that we can handle the emotional risks that come with loving and being loved. It's an act of courage that requires self-acceptance and the belief that we are deserving of love just as we are, flaws and all. Vulnerability is what allows deep emotional connection to form, enabling two people to truly know and understand each other. Without vulnerability, relationships remain surface level, missing the richness and depth that comes from mutual trust and openness. Yet, despite these truths, the fear of vulnerability persists. It is a protective mechanism that has served many women well in the past, helping them navigate difficult relationships or challenging life situations. However, when held on to too tightly, this fear becomes a barrier to true emotional intimacy. Women who are afraid to be vulnerable may find themselves pushing away the very love they need, sabotaging their own happiness because they cannot fully embrace the connection that is being offered. To overcome the fear of vulnerability, it's important for women to first acknowledge and understand it. Recognizing that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a gateway to growth, connection, and authentic love is the first step in healing this fear. It requires self-reflection, self-compassion, and a willingness to confront past hurts and traumas. It may involve learning to trust again, not just in others, but in oneself. It also means giving oneself permission to feel deeply and to express those feelings without judgment. Healing from the fear of vulnerability is a gradual process, but it is one of the most liberating things a woman can do for herself. It allows her to open her heart to love, to experience intimacy in its truest form, and to embrace the beauty of being seen and accepted for who she truly is. When we stop fearing vulnerability, we begin to live more fully, more authentically, and with the courage to love and be loved in return. Past wounds and unhealed trauma often shape how we approach relationships, love, and intimacy. For many women, these emotional scars can be deep and long-lasting, affecting their ability to trust others and fully experience love in a healthy, balanced way. Trauma, whether caused by betrayal, loss, abuse, or neglect, doesn't just fade with time. It can linger, affecting our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors in subtle yet powerful ways. These unresolved emotional wounds are often the root cause of many self-protective behaviors, including the tendency to push away love and affection, even when it's genuine. When a woman has experienced emotional pain or trauma in her past, it can create a protective shell around her heart. This shell is meant to keep her safe from further hurt. But it also prevents the healing process and stops love from flowing freely into her life. Trauma can be caused by various events: an emotionally neglectful childhood, a past relationship where trust was broken, or an experience of physical or emotional abuse. Regardless of the form, the impact can be profound, often causing feelings of shame, unworthiness, and fear. One of the most challenging aspects of past wounds is the way they distort our perception of love and relationships. When someone has been hurt before, whether it's through betrayal or emotional abandonment, they often develop a belief that love is conditional or that it comes with an inevitable cost. If love was not freely given or was given with strings attached, a woman may begin to associate affection with pain, disappointment, or loss. This warped perception can make it difficult to trust new partners, even when they are offering genuine, unconditional care. A fear of history repeating itself often leads to emotional distance, even when a partner's intentions are pure. For many women, past wounds also manifest as a lack of self-worth. If a woman has been treated poorly or made to feel unimportant in past relationships, she may internalize the belief that she is not worthy of healthy love. This sense of unworthiness is often rooted in childhood experiences where love was conditional or where she was made to feel invisible or unimportant. These deep-rooted beliefs about her own value can make it hard for her to accept the love she deserves. She might push it away because on a subconscious level, she doesn't believe she is deserving of such care and affection. Emotional trauma can also result in a deep fear of vulnerability. When a woman has been hurt in the past, particularly in relationships, vulnerability becomes associated with pain. Vulnerability, which should be a natural part of love and connection, starts to feel like a risk one that could lead to more heartbreak. As a result, a woman may build walls around her heart, unwilling to let anyone in, even those who genuinely care about her. These walls act as a defense mechanism, keeping potential hurt at bay, but they also block the possibility of true emotional intimacy. The more she protects herself, the less she is able to experience the depth of connection that comes with vulnerability. Another impact of unhealed trauma is that it can create patterns of self-sabotage. A woman who has been hurt in the past may unconsciously recreate the same unhealthy dynamics in her relationships, even when she consciously wants to avoid them. This might include choosing partners who are emotionally unavailable or engaging in behaviors that push love away. These self-sabotaging patterns often stem from a subconscious belief that she is not deserving of a healthy, loving relationship. Even when someone is offering genuine care, the fear of being hurt again can cause her to act in ways that undermine the relationship. Unhealed trauma can also leave a woman feeling disconnected from her own emotions. When she has experienced significant pain, particularly in her formative years, she may have learned to suppress or ignore her feelings to survive. This emotional numbness becomes a coping mechanism, allowing her to function day to day without confronting the hurt. However, over time, this emotional numbness can erode her ability to connect deeply with others. When someone genuinely cares for her, it can feel like a foreign concept because she has not fully learned to process her emotions or trust her own feelings. She might push love away simply because it feels overwhelming or unfamiliar. Healing from past wounds and unhealed trauma is a long and often difficult journey, but it is possible. The first step toward healing is acknowledging that the past has hurt her, but that it does not define her. Women need to learn to recognize the ways in which their past experiences influence their current behaviors and beliefs about love and relationships. Once this awareness is in place, healing can begin. Healing involves reframing the way a woman views herself and her worth. She must come to understand that her past does not determine her future. It's crucial to learn to value herself as she is, flaws, scars, and all. This means releasing the belief that she must be perfect to deserve love and accepting that her worth is inherent, not based on what has happened to her or what others have done to her. Additionally, healing requires learning to trust again. This doesn't happen overnight, but it can be cultivated through small steps, opening up to people who are trustworthy, allowing herself to be vulnerable in safe spaces, and slowly letting go of the protective wall she has built around her heart. The process involves forgiveness, not necessarily of others, but of herself. She must forgive herself for the things she feels she did wrong, for allowing herself to be hurt, and for any past choices that didn't serve her. Self-forgiveness is a powerful step in reclaiming one's sense of worth and the ability to love freely. Through self-compassion, self-reflection, and seeking support from trusted people or professionals, women can heal from past wounds. They can learn to embrace love without fear, to trust without hesitation, and to open their hearts fully to the care they deserve. Healing is a journey, but it is one that allows women to step into their fullest, most authentic selves, free from the chains of past trauma. The fear of losing identity is a common and often unspoken challenge that many women face in relationships, particularly when it comes to receiving love or affection. For some women, being loved and cared for can feel like a threat to their individuality, independence, and personal sense of self. The idea that love might demand change, whether it be emotional, behavioral, or even social, can trigger deep feelings of anxiety, resistance, and even rejection of genuine care. This fear isn't about doubting the love itself, but about the perceived risks to one's own identity and autonomy. At the core of this fear is the belief that love requires compromise, often in ways that may feel too personal or invasive. In relationships, there is an inherent need for compromise and mutual understanding. However, for some women, these compromises can feel like a loss of who they are. It may be that they fear they will lose touch with their own dreams, desires, or interests in favor of someone else's needs or expectations. The thought of becoming less of themselves in the process can be overwhelming. This fear can manifest as resistance to change or an unconscious pushing away of love that requires emotional adaptation. This fear is also deeply rooted in the societal expectations placed on women to be caregivers, nurturers, and supporters of others, often at the expense of their own identity. From a young age, many women are taught to prioritize the needs of others over their own, with the belief that their value is found in how they serve and support those around them. This conditioning can make it difficult for them to maintain a strong sense of individuality when they enter into intimate relationships. There may be an internal struggle where they feel like they have to choose between their relationship and their own sense of self. The fear of losing themselves in the process often leads to emotional withdrawal or hesitance to fully embrace the connection. Another aspect of this fear is the vulnerability that comes with love. True emotional intimacy often requires a level of openness and exposure that can make women feel as if they are giving up pieces of themselves. This vulnerability can feel like a loss of control, as though love demands that they reveal parts of themselves they would rather keep hidden. For many, this feeling of exposure can be uncomfortable or even threatening. The fear is that once they share their true selves, they may be judged, rejected, or in the worst case, forced to change who they are to please another person. Additionally, the fear of losing one's identity can stem from past experiences where women felt they had to give up too much of themselves in relationships. For example, in past relationships where boundaries were not respected or where one partner dominated the other, women may have felt as if they lost their voice, their desires, or their needs. These past experiences create a belief that love means giving up something essential. The idea that to love or be loved means sacrificing parts of themselves becomes ingrained. Over time, this belief becomes a barrier to healthy love, as women may resist relationships where they feel they might lose control or their sense of self. Independence is another key factor in this fear. For many women, their sense of self is closely tied to their independence. They take pride in their ability to make decisions, support themselves, and maintain their own life without relying on others. The thought of merging lives with someone else, of becoming interdependent or sharing deeply with a partner, can create fear of losing that autonomy. There's a worry that in doing so, they may become too reliant on another person, thus losing the freedom they've worked so hard to cultivate. This fear is especially prominent in women who have had to rely on themselves throughout their lives, whether due to past experiences of abandonment, neglect, or emotional independence. This fear can also be fueled by societal pressures that dictate what it means to be a woman in a relationship. Women are often portrayed in media and culture as either fully independent, strong, and self-sufficient, or as subservient, willing to make any sacrifice for love. These extremes can make it difficult for women to understand how they can both maintain their individuality and be in a loving, supportive relationship. The fear of losing identity arises when they cannot see themselves fitting into either mold. They feel they must choose between being loved and being themselves, a choice that feels both unfair and limiting. The fear of losing one's identity is also closely linked to self-worth. Women who base their value on their ability to maintain independence may struggle to accept love without feeling like they are compromising their integrity. They may worry that if they let their guard down or allow someone to get too close, they will lose their sense of self-worth. The idea that love is conditional upon losing one's individuality becomes a barrier to receiving the unconditional love that truly supports growth and self-discovery. Overcoming the fear of losing identity requires understanding that love doesn't have to mean losing oneself. In fact, love, when experienced in a healthy and supportive relationship, can allow both partners to grow and evolve while still retaining their individuality. True love encourages personal development, supports independence, and values each person's unique qualities. It's about finding balance where both individuals can maintain their own identities while building a shared life together. Rather than feeling like one must give up essential parts of themselves, love becomes an opportunity to enhance and expand the self. The key to overcoming this fear lies in building strong boundaries, fostering self-awareness, and learning to trust the right relationships. Women must recognize that love does not require them to give up their dreams or desires. Instead, they can embrace the idea that true love encourages both partners to flourish individually and together. Being in a relationship should enhance one's life, not diminish it. Self-reflection is also essential in this process. Women can take time to evaluate what makes them feel whole, what their needs are, and how they can ensure their individuality remains intact while still being open to the love and support of others. They can embrace the concept of interdependence, where both partners are strong in their own right, yet mutually supportive. By recognizing that their identity is not something to be feared or lost in love, women can begin to trust the process of giving and receiving love. They can let go of the fear that love means losing themselves and instead find empowerment in the idea that love allows them to be their truest selves, supported and cherished by a partner who values them for who they truly are. Unworthiness and self-sabotage are deeply intertwined emotional struggles that can hold women back from experiencing the love, success, and happiness they deserve. These feelings often originate from past experiences, particularly in childhood or in formative relationships, and can become ingrained in the psyche, shaping how women see themselves and how they interact with the world around them. At their core, unworthiness and self-sabotage are rooted in a belief that they are not deserving of love, respect, or success. This belief can cause them to act in ways that undermine their own well-being, pushing away opportunities and people who are genuinely supportive and caring. Unworthiness often manifests as a deep, pervasive feeling that no matter what one does, they are never quite enough. This feeling can be so ingrained that it becomes part of a woman's identity, affecting her ability to see her own value clearly. When a woman feels unworthy, she may struggle to accept compliments, positive feedback, or affection. It can feel uncomfortable or even foreign to receive praise or love because there is an underlying belief that she hasn't earned it or that she doesn't truly deserve it. This belief can prevent her from fully embracing and enjoying the good things in life, leading her to diminish her own worth in her own eyes and the eyes of others. A woman who feels unworthy may also struggle with a lack of self-love. She may find it difficult to take care of herself, to set boundaries, or to prioritize her own needs. Self-care, both emotionally and physically, becomes something that feels indulgent or unnecessary, as if her own well-being is not a priority. The belief in her unworthiness often leads to neglecting her own needs or putting others' needs ahead of her own, as she feels that she is undeserving of taking up space or having her desires met. This constant neglect can cause burnout, resentment, and feelings of exhaustion, further reinforcing the cycle of unworthiness. Self-sabotage occurs when a woman, often subconsciously, engages in behaviors that prevent her from achieving her goals, experiencing success, or fully accepting love and happiness. It is a defense mechanism rooted in the belief that she is not worthy of good things in her life, so she inadvertently sabotages them to reinforce the belief she holds about herself. This can manifest in various ways: procrastination, perfectionism, or even choosing toxic relationships that confirm the belief that she is not deserving of better. Self-sabotage may also show up as self-doubt or fear of failure, where a woman might not even attempt something because she believes that success is out of her reach. One of the most common forms of self-sabotage is the tendency to push away healthy relationships. A woman who feels unworthy may find it difficult to trust that someone could love her in a healthy and unconditional way. Even when someone genuinely cares, she may push them away out of fear that the relationship will expose her perceived flaws or that she doesn't deserve the love they offer. She may start arguments, create distance, or engage in behaviors that drive the other person away, believing that she is not capable of maintaining a healthy relationship. This behavior is a form of self-sabotage because it denies her the opportunity to experience the love and connection that could help her heal and grow. Another form of self-sabotage is procrastination, where a woman delays or avoids taking action toward her goals. She might have big dreams or aspirations, but deep down she believes she isn't capable of achieving them. This belief in her own inadequacy prevents her from taking the necessary steps to move forward. Instead, she might make excuses, stay in her comfort zone, or avoid making decisions, all the while reinforcing the belief that she is not worthy of success or accomplishment. Procrastination becomes a way to avoid failure, but it also prevents her from experiencing success and growth. Perfectionism is another common form of self-sabotage. A woman who believes she is unworthy may set impossibly high standards for herself, believing that she must be perfect in every area of her life to be deserving of success or love. This can lead to burnout, frustration, and a sense of never measuring up. She might procrastinate because she's afraid her work won't be perfect, or she might avoid starting something new altogether out of fear that she will fail. The cycle of perfectionism often leads to chronic dissatisfaction and feelings of inadequacy, reinforcing the belief that she is never enough. Choosing toxic relationships is another manifestation of self-sabotage, often rooted in the belief that a woman doesn't deserve better. A woman who feels unworthy may attract or settle for partners who are emotionally unavailable, disrespectful, or even abusive. She may believe that this is all she is worthy of, or that she doesn't have the ability to attract someone who treats her with the love and respect she deserves. These toxic relationships further erode her sense of self-worth and perpetuate the belief that she is undeserving of healthy love. The cycle of unworthiness and self-sabotage can feel impossible to break, but it is important to recognize that these beliefs are not an accurate reflection of one's true worth. The first step in overcoming this cycle is awareness, recognizing when feelings of unworthiness arise and understanding how they manifest in behavior. Once a woman becomes aware of these patterns, she can begin to challenge the beliefs that underpin them. This often involves reframing the way she sees herself, learning to accept her flaws and imperfections, and embracing the idea that she is worthy of love, respect, and success just as she is. Healing from unworthiness and self-sabotage also requires self-compassion. Women must learn to be kind to themselves, forgiving themselves for past mistakes and allowing themselves to make mistakes without judgment. This process involves nurturing the inner child and providing the care and love that may have been lacking in the past. It also involves seeking support from trusted friends, family, or professionals who can help them reframe their beliefs and build their self-worth. As women learn to challenge their feelings of unworthiness and overcome self-sabotage, they begin to open themselves up to greater opportunities for success, love, and personal fulfillment. They become more willing to take risks, set boundaries, and pursue their dreams without fear of failure or rejection. They begin to recognize their value and see that they are worthy of all the good things life has to offer. Emotional availability is a critical aspect of building healthy, fulfilling relationships, yet it is often misunderstood or underappreciated. It refers to the ability of an individual to be open, present, and responsive to their own emotions, as well as to the emotions of others. Emotional availability allows a person to connect authentically, to share their feelings, and to be vulnerable without fear of rejection or judgment. However, many people, particularly those who have experienced emotional trauma or have been conditioned to suppress their feelings, struggle with emotional availability. This lack of emotional openness can prevent them from forming deep and meaningful connections with others. For some, emotional availability can be difficult to access because it requires a level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence that many haven't developed. It involves recognizing one's feelings and being able to express them in a way that is both healthy and constructive. People who are emotionally unavailable may not have learned how to process their emotions in a way that supports their well-being, making it hard for them to communicate openly or form close bonds with others. This emotional distance can often be mistaken for indifference or a lack of care, but in many cases it stems from a fear of vulnerability, rejection, or simply not knowing how to manage emotions effectively. One of the main barriers to emotional availability is the fear of vulnerability. Being emotionally available requires allowing others to see the parts of ourselves that are often hidden, our fears, insecurities, and desires. For some, this vulnerability feels like a threat because it opens them up to potential hurt. If someone has experienced emotional pain in the past, such as rejection, betrayal, or abandonment, they may become guarded and closed off in future relationships. They may fear that if they allow themselves to be emotionally available, they will be hurt again, so they keep their emotions at a distance as a form of self-protection. Another reason emotional availability is often lacking is past trauma. Those who have experienced childhood neglect, emotional abuse, or any form of emotional trauma may have difficulty trusting others with their feelings. When emotions are invalidated or ignored in early life, it can lead to a belief that emotions are not safe to express and that it's better to keep them hidden. This mindset can persist into adulthood, preventing a person from being open and available in their relationships. People who have experienced this kind of emotional neglect often struggle with expressing their emotions openly, as they may have learned to suppress their feelings to avoid conflict or criticism. As a result, they may come across as emotionally distant or disengaged, even if they genuinely care about others. In some cases, emotional availability is also hindered by a lack of emotional literacy. Many people are not taught how to identify, express, or manage their emotions in a healthy way. They may struggle to recognize what they are feeling, which makes it difficult to communicate their emotions to others. Without emotional literacy, they may resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as avoidance, repression, or anger, which only serve to keep them emotionally unavailable. This lack of emotional fluency can make it challenging to form deep, connected relationships because emotional communication is a fundamental part of human connection. Another contributing factor to emotional unavailability is a focus on external achievements or distractions. People who are deeply focused on their career, personal success, or other external pursuits may unintentionally neglect their emotional needs. They may feel that their worth is tied to their achievements or that they do not have time to engage with their emotions. In these cases, emotional availability may be pushed to the side in favor of more immediate or tangible goals. This can create a disconnection between the individual and their loved ones, as emotional intimacy requires attention, time, and energy to nurture. Emotional availability also plays a significant role in romantic relationships. For a relationship to thrive, both partners must be able to connect emotionally and respond to each other's needs with empathy and understanding. When one or both partners are emotionally unavailable, the relationship can feel one-sided or disconnected. In these situations, one partner may feel like they are constantly giving, while the other is emotionally distant or withdrawn. This imbalance can lead to frustration, resentment, and eventually the breakdown of the relationship. Without emotional availability, it becomes nearly impossible to build trust, intimacy, and a lasting connection. Being emotionally available doesn't mean constantly sharing every emotion or feeling exposed all the time. Instead, it is about being present, aware, and willing to engage with others emotionally when the situation calls for it. It means being able to listen attentively to a partner, a friend, or a family member, and offering empathy and support. It also involves being able to accept and validate one's own emotions, allowing oneself to feel and process those emotions in a healthy way. Emotional availability is not just about being there for others, it is also about being there for oneself. In relationships, emotional availability fosters a sense of safety and trust. When both people are emotionally available, they can share their thoughts and feelings openly, knowing that they will be heard, understood, and supported. This creates a foundation for healthy communication and conflict resolution. On the other hand, emotional unavailability often leads to misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and distance. In these cases, partners may feel like they are speaking different emotional languages, leading to frustration and emotional disconnection. For individuals who struggle with emotional availability, there are ways to improve. The first step is becoming more self-aware and acknowledging the barriers that prevent emotional openness. This could involve seeking therapy, practicing mindfulness, or simply taking time to reflect on one's emotional patterns. It's also helpful to build emotional literacy by learning how to identify and label emotions accurately. Journaling, meditation, or talking to a trusted friend can be helpful tools for processing emotions. Another important step is building trust in relationships, which often begins with practicing vulnerability in small ways, such as sharing thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment or rejection. Emotional availability can be cultivated and developed over time. It is a skill that requires practice and patience. By learning to open up emotionally and engage authentically with others, individuals can create deeper, more meaningful relationships and lead more fulfilling lives. Emotional availability is not just about being present for others, it is also about embracing one's own emotions, being vulnerable, and allowing oneself to experience true emotional connection. It is an essential ingredient in creating healthy relationships and living a life filled with emotional fulfillment and authenticity. The fear of change is one of the most common and often paralyzing emotions that people experience in their lives. Whether it's a career shift, a change in relationship dynamics, or a major life transition, the uncertainty that accompanies change can bring about feelings of fear, anxiety, and even resistance. At its core, the fear of change is rooted in a natural human instinct to avoid the unknown and preserve the status quo. As much as we might desire growth or improvement, the comfort of familiarity often feels safer, even if it no longer serves our best interests. Change, by its very nature, disrupts the equilibrium of life. Humans are creatures of habit, and routines provide a sense of security. When something unexpected or unfamiliar arises, it threatens the sense of stability and control that we have built in our lives. This discomfort is not just mental, but often manifests physically as well, in the form of stress, restlessness, or even physical ailments. The thought of stepping out of our comfort zone can trigger the body's fight or flight response, signaling to us that danger is near, even if the change itself isn't inherently dangerous. One of the most common reasons for the fear of change is the uncertainty it brings. The unknown can be frightening, as it requires us to let go of our preconceived notions, assumptions, and the safety net of predictability. It's easy to remain in a situation that is familiar, even if it's not ideal, because we know what to expect. Change, on the other hand, invites unpredictability and a sense of vulnerability. There is no way of knowing what lies on the other side of a decision, which can be deeply unsettling. Whether it's starting a new job, moving to a new city, or even changing personal habits, the potential outcomes are unknown, and the brain often defaults to fear in these situations. Another aspect of the fear of change is the concern over losing control. Life for many feels easier when we can control certain aspects of it. When we face change, especially change that feels forced upon us, we may perceive it as a loss of control. Whether it's the outcome of a decision, the timing of events, or the reactions of others, there's a feeling of being at the mercy of forces outside of our control. This can trigger feelings of helplessness, as we begin to question our ability to manage the consequences of change. We fear that we won't be able to cope with the new circumstances, and this uncertainty can prevent us from moving forward, even when the change could potentially improve our lives. The fear of failure is another significant factor in resisting change. If change means trying something new or stepping into unfamiliar territory, there is often a lingering fear of failure. The idea of not succeeding can be so intimidating that it paralyzes people, causing them to resist taking any action at all. For many, failure is perceived as a reflection of their worth, an indication that they are not good enough, capable enough, or deserving of success. This fear of failing can cause them to stay in situations they know are not working simply because it feels less risky than venturing into the unknown. In addition to fear of failure, there is also a fear of loss that often accompanies change. Whether it's the loss of a relationship, a job, or an identity, the prospect of losing something familiar can be emotionally overwhelming. Change often involves sacrifice, and for many, the idea of letting go of something they have invested time, energy, and emotions in can be incredibly difficult. This fear of loss can prevent individuals from embracing necessary changes as they hold on to what is comfortable or what they believe defines them. The thought of starting over, of building something new from scratch, can feel like an insurmountable challenge, especially if the individual has deep emotional attachments to their current circumstances. Another factor in the fear of change is societal pressure and the expectations of others. People may resist change because they fear judgment or rejection from their social circles. If they deviate from the norms or expectations of family, friends, or colleagues, they may fear being misunderstood or ostracized. This fear of disappointing others or not living up to societal standards can make the decision to change feel even more daunting. As a result, many choose to stay in situations that are comfortable or familiar, even if they aren't happy, because they fear the reactions or opinions of those around them. However, despite the fear that change can bring, it's important to recognize that change is often a necessary part of growth and self-improvement. While the unknown can be intimidating, it is also where opportunities for transformation lie. Change offers the potential for new experiences, lessons, and growth. The discomfort that accompanies change is often a signal that something important is happening, that the individual is being stretched beyond their current limits, and that they are on the brink of something new and meaningful. To overcome the fear of change, it's essential to first acknowledge the fear and recognize it for what it is: a natural response to uncertainty. Instead of allowing the fear to paralyze us, we can choose to move through it step by step. One way to do this is by reframing the concept of change. Instead of viewing it as a threat, we can see it as an opportunity for growth, even if the process is uncomfortable. Setting small, manageable goals can make the change feel less overwhelming, allowing individuals to gain confidence as they take each step forward. Another powerful tool for overcoming the fear of change is self-compassion. Being kind to ourselves, acknowledging the discomfort, and allowing ourselves to make mistakes along the way can help reduce the pressure to get everything perfect. Change is often a process of trial and error, and it's okay to stumble as long as we continue to move forward. Lastly, support from others can be invaluable when facing change. Whether it's talking to a mentor, a friend, or a therapist, having someone to offer perspective, encouragement, and understanding can make the transition feel less daunting. Sometimes just knowing that we are not alone in our fears can provide the strength we need to embrace the unknown and step into a new chapter of our lives. While the fear of change is a natural and instinctive part of being human, it is also something that can be overcome with awareness, compassion, and action. By reframing change as an opportunity rather than a threat, individuals can move through their fear and into a space of growth, self-discovery, and transformation.